So on the left, we've got JuJu Watkins, one of the greatest prospects in WNBA history. And on the right, we've got Caitlin Clark, arguably one of the 4 greatest rookies of all time, because I think you can have an argument for Caitlin Clark. You can have, obviously, an argument for Candace Parker. You can have an argument for Tamika Catchings, and you can have an argument for Maya Moore. Maya Moore won a championship. As far as just pure statistical anomaly, Caitlin Clark is just way out in front. Tamika Catchings was unbelievable. And then, obviously, Candace Parker won MVP, but there needs to be like an asterisk that without the online fan vote, Candace Parker would not have won MVP that year. But, so JuJu Watkins is unbelievable. She is absolutely unbelievable. But I think there is a little bit too much pressure being put on JuJu Watkins, because we can't forget JuJu's a freshman. JuJu was a freshman. JuJu is unbelievable, by the way, but she was a freshman. And you can see here, Charles Barkley out here signals potential end for Caitlin Clark's time at the top. Caitlin is a supernova, and JuJu is probably a better player from Charles Barkley. And basically, he was saying it in the context of like, you can't, these WNBA players that are like hating on Caitlin Clark, like, they don't realize JuJu's going to come in and be better. And I think that's an actual argument to be made. But I think after how good Caitlin Clark's rookie season is, I think it's very, very, we got to be careful when it comes to putting these expectations on other players. Because JuJu versus Caitlin as a freshman, I think, had near identical seasons. Like, both of them got to the tournament. Neither of them obviously made. I think, did Iowa lost to UConn, I think, when she was a freshman in the tournament. Obviously, no fans or anything, so it was a bit of a weird one. And obviously, JuJu got to the Elite Eight. JuJu is now coming into this year playing with Kiki Ariafen. A lot of big recruits are going to be going to USC, so they're really expected to win. Like, Caitlin Clark has never played with a 5-star recruit in college. She was the only 5-star recruit. And you also have to take into account that, like, Caitlin Clark, she played with one player who has played a WNBA game, and it was a second-round pick in Kate Martin. And, like, if you look at, say, Stewie played with 12 first-round picks over her 4 years. So it's one of those things where it's like, she's now going to be expected to, she now has to win for her to have the greater college career, because she won't break the points record that Caitlin Clark set. But I think they're so different as players. Like, there is that comparison, but I think JuJu Watkins is like more of a just better Ryan Howard type player. But she is smooth. She's going to be really good. She's going to be really good from the second she steps onto a WNBA floor. But I think putting the pressure on these players to be better than Caitlin Clark is crazy. Because Caitlin Clark, you can make the argument that with the right coach, Caitlin Clark is the best player in the world. Like, she has done everything despite having a coach that when she came into the WNBA, and like, yeah, she obviously improved, but I think if the team were playing a fast-paced offense and letting her run the show from game one, instead of being so worried about running quick hitters to get her out coming off screens, especially her coming off screens going right where she doesn't catch the ball the best and shoot from. Like, when it comes to that, I do think with Caitlin Clark, she could have come in a lot better with any other coach other than Christy Sides, who had a year basically, or not a year, 4 months to realize how to use Caitlin Clark. And what, instead of trying to build around Caitlin Clark, she wanted to change Caitlin Clark. So I think she would have had a rookie year where she averaged 20 and 9. So, like, she averaged 19 and 8.5. She could, you know what, 20, I'll give her 20 and 10 if at the start of the year, Christy Sides let her be her. Instead of saying, we want her to shoot more long twos, not more mid-ranges, more long twos. And also, you know, we want her to pass the ball after 0.5 seconds, to not hold onto the ball. And it's like, man, the game is so slow to Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's able to slow the game down, speed it up. She's able to slow the game down in her head because she's that far ahead of the rest of her teammates. Either way, let's not talk about that. But look, JuJu, it's going to be nearly impossible to come in. Like, Caitlin Clark had a significantly better rookie season than AJ Wilson. And AJ Wilson, a lot of people are calling the greatest ever. She had a better rookie season than Diana Taurasi, who a lot of people say is the GOAT. So JuJu's going to have to come in to a league where she's going to be more accepted than Caitlin. But I do think that there is going to be a lot of resentment towards JuJu as well. Like, people are acting like the stuff that Caitlin Clark's had to deal with. JuJu is getting paid more than 99% of them in college. There probably is already some resentment towards JuJu from these players. And on the court, she's going to have to come out and average 25 points a game because she doesn't really pass the ball. She's going to have to come out and average 25 to have a better rookie year than Caitlin. Like, when she comes into the league, she's going to come in and be expected to be a top 3 player in the WNBA from day one, which is going to be so hard. Like, it's going to be so hard because when she's there, Aja Wilson's 32? Stewie, 33. Caitlin Clark will be 3 years in. Paige Beckers will be 2 years, will be going into her 3rd year. Trying to think what other players there are. Heck, you don't know what type of step up Brian Howard's going to have. There's going to be players we haven't even heard of. They're going to be balling. Leni Fibic will be 27. Shout out Fibic. I will always be number one Leni Fibic fan. But, and there's going to be a hell of a lot of other college players, as well as the fact that Hannah Hidalgo's in her class. And Zhang Jiu. People keep just forgetting. Zhang Jiu's eligible in 2027 as well. So, I think we're looking at it and it's like, as great as JuJu is, it is like silly to say that she's going to be better than Caitlin Clark, because I will make this point. I think she was a better freshman than Caitlin Clark. But sorry, we can't just look at box scores. Paige Beckers was also a better freshman than Caitlin Clark. But Caitlin's improvement year on year on year, and even her improvement from like any chance she gets in an off season, like there's no harder worker when it comes to women's basketball than Caitlin Clark. Like, as far as just workouts, like from what we've heard from anyone, there's nobody that's like a harder worker than Caitlin. So she's made that improvement, and I think it's very, very premature to say that about JuJu now. Like, I've no doubt about it, JuJu's going to still be incredible. But there is a possibility that this year JuJu averages 22 points a game and improves as a player. Like, if I was the USC coach, I would be more focused on JuJu's all-around game. Be like, okay, you average 27 a game. You shot 30% from 3. You're a bit inefficient. You know what? We're going to have you as like a secondary ball handler. Do a little bit more playmaking. Go and average 22 a game, but maybe your assist numbers go up to 5 assists a game. Go average 22, 5. You're playing with Kiki Iriafen. You're playing with arguably the best player in college. You go get her the ball a few times. Be able to become more of a pick and roll ball handler. Get more to your game. Get the passing. Get the shooting. And yeah, maybe the like craziness of the Caitlin Clark comparison goes, but long term that might help her game. Being a more well-rounded player rather than just a pure scorer. Because to be fair, Kiki Iriafen is her best asset is scoring the basketball. So yeah, it is an interesting one because on one hand, it is a not fact, but it's true. Like, we can't just look at things with nostalgia goggles. Like JuJu Watkins has had the best freshman year since Paige Beckers, but also Paige Beckers was literally National Player of the Year as a freshman, and also like Paige Beckers, the hype of Paige Beckers in 2021 had people like almost demanding that the WNBA change the age limit for players coming into the league, because they were like, she can't play 3 more years in college. She's got to go into the WNBA. People were trying to change it to 20 so that she could leave after her sophomore year because she was that good. And then the injuries happened. And yeah, she was just an afterthought. Like, she didn't enter the draft this year realistically because she knew she wasn't going to go number 1. Again, obviously, I think she wanted to stay at UConn. I think she probably makes as much money at UConn as anywhere. She is the face of women's college basketball, her and JuJu right now. Financially, it probably made more sense for her because you don't want to go into the league the year of Caitlin Clark unless you are the anti-Clark in Angel Reese. If you have a chance to stay, you probably should stay. And to be honest, Cameron Brink probably should, like the likes of Cameron Brink probably could have and maybe should have stayed another year, because then suddenly Cameron Brink is the number 2 pick this year. She's not caught up in the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese crap, and obviously she tore ACL, so that's all out the window. But like, that might have been a better decision in hindsight. But yeah, that is it. Like, I don't think the comparison is wrong. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to predict that JuJu will be better than Caitlin Clark. But I do think when you are someone like Charles Barkley, where your word kind of carries a little bit more weight, putting that kind of pressure on a player to be effectively the face of the league from day one. We've seen with Caitlin Clark, and you've seen even like I think Conor McCaffrey said it, where it was like about the social media stuff, and it was like he saw how badly it affected himself and his loved ones. Obviously, you would assume Caitlin Clark's in that, where it's like, we probably, I think, should have learned enough from this year where it's like you don't want to put that pressure on somebody else, because Caitlin Clark lived up to the pressure. But for every Caitlin Clark, there are 10 people that are unbelievable, but just not Caitlin Clark. Like, for every super hyped person that ends up being Caitlin Clark, there's a super hyped player that ends up being Ryan Howard, who is a future all WNBA player, maybe a future Team USA Olympian, an all-star, realistically should have been all 3 years of her career, and just a damn good player. But they're not in that MVP conversation from day one and being second favorite for MVP as a sophomore. And realistically, she should be the favorite for MVP next year. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Big fan of JuJu. Looking forward to seeing how she gets on at USC. But I do think it's a little bit to put that pressure. And what, she's 19 now or something? To put that pressure on a 19-year-old is kind of crazy, especially because they're not in the league right now. It's a different thing in the NBA where they come into the league at 19 and no one expects them to be the best straight away. But if you perform like a top 30 player like Wembanyama and show flashes of being one of the best players, everyone's super excited for you. And then the goal is by year 3 or year 4 to be in that top 3 or 4 players conversation. The problem is that JuJu is going to be expected to walk in and be top 3 right away, and it's really freaking hard to do.